everybody, it's Ronnie here at Daybreak Star Radio, bringing you another amazing interview with a legend, an absolute legend in the music industry, Stevie Salas. Stevie has carved out an illustrious career as a guitarist, showcasing his formidable talent across the globe. Known for his dynamic playing style, Salas has performed with some of the biggest names in music, including Rod Stewart, Mick Jagger. Stevie's influence extends into television and film, where he's contributed significantly as a music director and consultant. Notably, he is also the co-founder of Seeing Red Media, a platform dedicated to producing high-quality entertainment content. Stevie, thank you so much for being with us today. I really appreciate it. And next to me here is Sherry Steele.
Hey, I'm Sherry. I'm station manager here. I am a representative of the Peoria Tribe of Indians of Oklahoma. And it's just so great to have you here. Can you just say who you are and tell everybody who maybe strangely doesn't know who you are?
A lot of people, don't know who I am, and some people do. It's really weird. So around the world, because my name's Stevie Salas. I started off in San Diego as a musician. Started producing television around 2006 in Canada. It's funny that you mentioned Seeing Red Media, because Brian Porter and I just started that a while back, and it's really caught on. Because we started to, like, Rumble. Rumble was a thing that I wanted to do because I felt like I wanted to make a film about heroes, right? And I also wanted to show Indigenous people that they had role models that were not just from 150 years ago, but that did incredible things, right here in this lifetime. And I kind of did Rumble as a little treat for. It's supposed to be just a small film for Indigenous people to show to show them that anything is possible. I didn't know that Rumble was going to come out and win Sundance. I didn't know it was going to come out. I was going to get nominated for an Emmy Award. I didn't know it was going to change written history. I had no idea. And as a matter of fact, I got a D- in history class in high school. So, which is weird, right? Because I was speaking at Notre Dame University, and I'm in this giant lecture hall, right? And I looked at everyone, and before they started, I stopped and I just listened. I got a D- in history class in high school. So if you start asking me certain kind of questions, don't be surprised if I sound like a dummy. So, that just goes to show you don't have to be the mega scholar to kind of do something that could change the world,
Right.
Yeah. So on that's a great lead in. So what was your journey that led you to creating Rumble, which is called Rumble, the Indians Who Rocked the World?
Well, what happened was, I'm an Indigenous guy, and I've always been an Indigenous guy, but being Indigenous was not my shtick. You know what I mean? I wanted to be a rock star guitar player. I didn't go to a gig and say, I'm an Indian, hire me. You know what I mean? You had to be a great guitar player. And then they'd say, like, yeah, where are you from? And then they'd tell them, and I was like, oh, but it was never like, I was never a Native American guitar player. I was a guitar player who was Native American. That was always my thing. And I played with people from all over the world, from Public Enemy, Justin Timberlake, Mick Jagger, Rod Stewart, everybody, lots of people, huge people. And it was never about being Indigenous, but I noticed that as an Indigenous person, I had a different approach to the way I played the guitar and the rhythm that I played. And the rhythm worked with George Clinton and Funkadelic and Bootsy Collins, but it also worked with rock bands and heavy rock bands, and with me and Robert Trujillo, who's also an Indigenous guy from New Mexico like me. We would go play Lollapalooza, and we could easily do a whole set of Black Sabbath at Lollapalooza, then go right into some Ohio Players and play some old school funk. And a lot of guys can't do that. And I started to think maybe this has something to do with the rhythm that's inside of our DNA, right? So I started to think about around 2000, maybe it was a little after that. I was kind of sick of the music business. I was tired of it. I'd sold a few million albums, and I'd been doing it pretty hardcore since 1987. And I was ready to go surfing around the world and retire and be done. And I lost a ton of money in the stock market in the 2000 crash. And I had to go back to work. Yeah. And I was lucky because then Mick Jagger called me, and I became his guitar player and music director. And then after Mick, I went up to open for the Stones in Canada, in Toronto. And when I did, I met a guy named Brian Wright McLeod, who was writing. He's this incredible radio host and this musicologist and just a really smart book writing, intelligent Native American guy. And he was doing a book that had every bit of Native American music documented in this encyclopedia going all the way back to 1908 in wax cylinders. And he wanted me in his book. So when I was doing the interview with him, he was turning me on to all these musicians that I had heard of and I had knew who they were, but I didn't know any of them were Native American. You know, like I had no idea Robbie Robertson was Native American. I had no idea Jesse Ed Davis was a Native American. I had no idea Link Ray was a Native American, but I'd been listening to them and seeing their names on albums my whole life. So I said, man, if I'm at this level and I don't know they're Native Americans, I guarantee you most Native people don't know they are. And I go, I want to do something to try to change that. And like I said, the whole idea was to make a small little film just to show people that anything's possible. And that's kind of what happened. And that's how Rumble got made. I just wanted to do something to give a little something back for the good life that I had as a musician and as an artist. And it kind of just blew up.
Nice. So that brings me to the goals and impacts of the film. Like after you decided, what was your primary goal when creating Rumble, and how do you feel the documentary has influenced the recognition of Native musicians?
Well, it did way beyond my wildest dreams. Like, the coolest thing about it was that I had set out. First I went to work at the Smithsonian with a Mohawk guy who was the co-director named Tim Johnson. And I told him the story of Rumble, and he said, "Come to work at the Smithsonian and create an exhibit on the subject." All of a sudden I'm working at the Smithsonian, and I'm just a guitar player, right? You know what I mean? And it's like, all of a sudden I'm working at the Smithsonian with these scholars and all this stuff, and we created this exhibit that it was supposed to be a little tiny exhibit, and again, it outperformed. The Smithsonian was like, wow! It became their most popular exhibit they ever had in New York and in Washington D.C., and it was again a surprise. I remember when it opened up, it was kids. I got a call from the museum, and I was living at my house in Carlsbad, California then, and the lady goes, at the Smithsonian, there's kids lined up out the door trying to get in to see the exhibit, and they're all like rocker kids who wanted to see Randy Castillo from Ozzy and stuff like that, and they had no idea that was going to happen. And I tried to tell them, I go, this is going to open up the museum to a bigger group of people that normally wouldn't walk in here, and it did do that. So it really showed that there was a global interest. But the interest, which blew my mind, was that to have so many of the most famous musicians we've ever heard of tell me how they were so influenced. I mean, Jeff Beck, you guys all know who Jeff Beck is. Yeah. Jeff Beck told me that him and Jimmy Page used to jump around in the bedroom at his mom's house playing air guitar to Link Ray. I mean, picture Jimmy Page and Jeff Beck, two of the most famous, iconic guitar players in the history of music. Period. And they're jumping around at Link Ray. And Eric Clapton wrote me to talk about how much Jesse Ed Davis was just like his guy. And Steven Tyler told me that when he was starting Aerosmith, him and Joe Perry were sitting down trying to figure out what they wanted their new band to sound like, and all they listened to was Jesse Ed Davis and Taj Mahal. And I'm thinking, man, these are the most famous, iconic musicians and bands in the world, and they were influenced by this group of Native Americans. I mean, people need to know this. And it's an incredible sense of pride, right? Because nobody would ever believe it unless you heard it from them themselves. And luckily, I had all their phone numbers, so I was able to get them to be in the movie. That was the big coup.
Awesome. That's definitely awesome.
I do really like the idea of a whole bunch of rockers lined up to get into the Smithsonian too. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. It was cool.
Cool. So moving from music focus to broader social issues, with Boil Alert, what spurred the change in direction, and what new storytelling devices did you employ?
Well, Brian Porter and I, who started Scene Red, Six Nations and Scene Red Media, we realized when Rumble came out that you could accomplish, if you did the right type of film, you can reach more people in an hour and 45 minutes than you could, hiring a publicist or doing all kinds of other things. So we were already, I had went to Fiji, and on my way, I was producing a band in Australia called Yothu Yindi, an Indigenous band down there. And I stopped in Fiji on my way to meet an old high school friend named Daryl Larson, who worked for a company called Sawyer Water. And he had told me they were going into these villages and putting in water filtration systems where all these kids were sick and dying. Kids all have these, serious skin diseases. And he said that these diseases were healing up within weeks with no medicine, just by having clean water. And I thought to myself, I got to see this. So I flew down to Fiji and I brought Adam Beach with me. You guys all know the actor Adam Beach, right? So Adam and I flew down there to see what they were doing. And I went in some villages with them. Me and Adam did. Adam and I should say. And we learned about what they were doing. So then I said to the guy, my friend Daryl at Sawyer Water, I go, why am I 3/4 of the way around the world doing this? We could be doing this back home in North America. And he literally said to me, what are you talking about? Like, he had no idea. And he works for Sawyer Water. They're always in Africa. They're all these places fixing water issues and doing an amazing job, by the way. And so he went home and he researched and he called me back and he goes, oh my God, I found 1,100 communities that are on boil alerts in North America. Like, we had no idea. Again, like Rumble, nobody had any idea these musicians were native and that they influenced the most heaviest people in music. Nobody had any idea that in a first world country like America, there's tons of people that can't even drink the water without dying or being sick, And so we decided, let's make a movie about it. But we went into the bush ourselves. Brian found some money for us and we bought filters ourselves. We didn't wait for the government to do it because the government kept saying, we're going to do it. And they just never would. We just started doing it. And then we decided, let's make a film and create some awareness, because really we're in the awareness business. Rumble created awareness. Boil Alert creates awareness. That's really the thing about Boil Alert. We wanted people to see Oppenheimer, the huge movie getting the Academy Awards, had also repercussions that weren't always so positive. And I'm not putting Oppenheimer down because what he did was fascinating, amazing. But the people down the river from there now all have Geiger counters in their yard, and they have to, they have to read their mailbox for radiation when they go to check their mail. And nobody knows this. Nobody talks about it. We wanted to create more awareness about that.
Tackled my next question, Act 2. So skip to the next one. But first, I do want to thank you for making Boil Alert, because it is an issue that needs to be out there. And thank you for making sure that, people are knowing about it. Because like you said, not a lot of people do know about it. And getting that out there is very important. So
right on.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'm just going to follow because a lot of people heard about the crisis in Flint, which is certainly a crisis and a problem, but they didn't know that that's been going on for the last 100 or so years on a lot of reservations. Like,
oh yeah. It was really weird. I mean, we were in California driving up the 101, which is the most expensive, probably bunch of property along the California coastline. And on one side of this res we were at, everything was perfect. And on the other side of the res we were at, everything was perfect. But in that small, short piece of highway where the reservation was, the Yurok tribe, they can't drink the water. And it's like, it's all a game, it's all a game. The government's like, oh, we can't touch it. And then they can touch it if they want, but if they do, they want something in return. And it's just, and now it's a sovereign nation. We can't touch it. But if you're a sovereign nation, you try to do something on your own, they're going to squish you. It's just, there's so much weird going on out there. It's just nuts.
Yeah. Definitely. So what are some of the milestones that you are particularly proud of? And, I got to know, who were your most major influences?
It's weird. I ended up playing with most of my major influences. I mean, I like everybody else. I grew up loving Jimi Hendrix, and I loved, Led Zeppelin, and I loved Aerosmith, and I mean, I go to an Aerosmith concert. I was at a football stadium in Central America, and I was down there surfing, and they were playing. So I went to the concert. 35,000 people there. I go backstage and say hi to all the guys because I met Aerosmith when I was a little kid. When we opened the 1988 MTV Awards, when I was playing with Rod Stewart. Oh, wow. And they became my friends then, and they were my friends still. And then Stevie was like, Stevie, come on, man, come and jam with us. So next thing you know, I'm on stage playing Last Child, right? And I used to literally sit in the bedroom of my mom and dad's house, putting on the needle of the vinyl of Aerosmith and play Last Child. And it's like all of a sudden, I can play it with the actual band. These kind of things are mind blowing. Getting to talk with Jimmy Page, having Eric Clapton send you an email, or, Ronnie Montrose emailed me and I jammed with Hagar. All of these people, Eddie Van Halen, they were my influences, George Clinton, who discovered me, was Bootsy Collins. These guys were all people I listened to and worshiped. And somehow I just started to become one of them by accident, kind of, I don't know. And the whole thing's mind blowing to me. Still to this day, to this day, I just don't even believe, that I get to do what I do. And, I don't know. It's just weird. It's weird for me too. Trust me. It's really weird for me.
I totally understand that. I do totally understand that.
Yeah. I also have to say that my mother was super straight-laced, like just everything by the book. She drove under the speed limit because it was a limit. I don't know what illegal act she would have done to get Eric Clapton to email her. So,
yeah.
Anyway, so how has your approach to music and production evolved over the years? And has your heritage at all influenced that?
I think that my heritage is always, if you ever look back and go to Google old photos of me from like 1988, 89, 90, 91, 92, you'll always see one little thing on me that's indigenous. One or two, like I'll have a certain kind of a necklace on, or maybe an earring, or subtle. Always was subtle. It was for me. It wasn't from part of my showbiz thing at all. And I was always into that. And I always felt like I had, like I said before, I had a different approach to the way I played rhythm that seemed to lock in with drummers. And I've got to play with some of the best drummers in the history of rock. I even discovered Taylor Hawkins. You know what I mean? It was like he's the first guy ever. We went on the Aerosmith tour together. We took him on the Aerosmith tour when I produced Sass Jordan. And, I think that's where my right hand rhythm is really what is a part of my DNA and my heritage. And that's all I could think, because when we did Rumble, I was trying to look at the connection between Robbie and Jesse, and all of them had that thing where they could dance in two worlds, neither black nor white, and fit right in equally with both. And maybe that's part of the DNA. You know what I mean? I can dance with, I can hang out with the brothers, and I can hang out with the rock guys, and so can Rob Trujillo, so could Randy Castillo, so could Taboo. I mean, Taboo could rock, you know what I mean? He could do hip hop and all that stuff. And, I could play with Public Enemy I played on Welcome to the Terradome, but I could easily just go hang out with Mick Jagger or Rod Stewart and play, Maggie May, so it's like, I don't know. I think it's in my DNA. I really do.
So, I want to move over a little now because I want to talk about Seeing Red Media.
Yeah.
Got to know, what was the driving force behind, co-founding Seeing Red Media, and how do you envision its role in promoting Indigenous voices in the future and in media today?
Well, there's a couple things that we do that are a little different. Like Brian Porter, my Mohawk partner on Six Nations, we've been working on stuff for a long time. And originally, his boss was a mentor of ours, Jerry Montour, and Brian came up with this thing about wanting to see red, wanted to see more. We wanted to see a bigger influence of Indigenous people in Hollywood. We want to see a bigger group of people on the big stage. You know what I mean? I like playing Madison Square Gardens. I want to see more natives doing that. I want to, and we decided to put our time and our money into that, trying to create those avenues or show what could be done. And we also noticed, though, a lot of people focus on the negative in Indian country. This guy screwed me. Rumble was, it could have been like, they stole my music. They screwed me again. And we wouldn't do that. We made a movie about heroes. And our approach is, I don't like it when somebody of color says, oh, that dumb white, I don't like that. I think that's just ignorant and reverse racism, and there's no place for it. You can't move forward that way. And a lot of the social media sites think it's okay, and we don't. So we try to focus on the positive. We try to focus on stories of people doing incredible things, empowering things. stay away a little bit from the politics unless it's really vital for us, but we're not going to get into it. We try to present information. Rumble and Boiler Alert, these films presented information, good and bad, without saying this guy's bad and this guy's good. And they let you make up your own mind. And at Seeing Red, we try to keep our posts into showing positivity. And the other thing that I think is a problem is if Native people keep separating themselves from the mainstream, because we think at Seeing Red, Brian and I's whole motto is collaboration is the key to growth. I mean, what I learned from Mick Jagger, I couldn't have learned that in 10 years on my own. Collaboration with great people, surrounding yourself with the best people that you possibly can, and learning is the way to grow. And I find what's going on now a lot in Indian country that's concerning to us is that they separate themselves. We want to write our own this, and we're going to direct our own movies. And well, I mean, that's great. Well, how are you going to learn? If I can work with, Ron Howard, I'm going to work with Ron Howard, and whether he's Indigenous or whether he's from outer space, because he's amazing. And from him, I will learn and I will be better, and I will bring that to other people. And I find themselves now what's going on is Hollywood and stuff is also only casting a Native actor if it says in the role, Joe Littlefoot, he's a Crow Native, and then in the TV show, he always has to have, my father was blah, 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 and get stoic, or I come from the blah, blah, blah. You don't ask that from the Italian guy, Joe Esposito. You don't ask that from, anybody else in the movie. So you don't see the amazing actors like Martin Sensmeyer just being a leading man unless it calls for him being an Indigenous leading man, which really limits the roles he can get. And it's bad because he's actually an incredible actor and an incredibly great looking guy. And he should be in Saving Private Ryan. I mean, do you remember what every one of those guys in Private Ryan, where their families were from? I mean, it was not the narrative. But whenever you cast a Native guy, that's the narrative. And it's because Indigenous people are saying, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. So people are just saying, okay, I'm not going to do anything because whatever I do seems to be wrong and I'm going to get my ass kicked. And I think that's a problem. I think that's a real problem. I'm going to get yelled at for that, but I mean, I don't care.
But you're not wrong. I mean, as a Native and a gay man, it's the same thing I want to see too. I would like to just see the Native or the gay person just be a character on the show and not have to be some
stereotype.
Yeah, there's a reason why the Native or the gay person is there, it's just, they're just there. They're just a person. It's just another character. It doesn't have to be always part of the narrative. So,
Rock Hudson was gay as heck, and that you never knew it. He just was a great actor. You know what I mean? It's like, who cares? I don't really care what you like to do in your private life and your sex life. I don't really care. I'm not saying I don't care. Like I don't care. I mean, it's your business. I want to know what you deliver for the jobs that I need you for. If you're going to come play guitar or drums on a track I'm doing, I only care that you're amazing at that craft. I'm not into the rest of it. I'm not going to hire somebody based on their skin color ever. I'm going to try to make more Indigenous people inclusive if I can, but they're going to have to deliver. They're going to have to really deliver. It's an injustice to let them get away with it, anybody get away with it, purely based on that. Unless, you can do a favor every once in a while, don't get me wrong. And that favor may turn into something. I did a favor for Taylor Hawkins, and he became one of the most famous drummers in the world. You got to believe in some people, but I didn't do it because of the color of his skin. Did it because of who he was and what the color of his heart was. You know what I mean? And what's inside. And I know that that's kind of hardcore, and I know a lot of Indigenous people might give me a hard time for that, but I just feel like if you really want to be a world mover and shaker and a world leader, you got to get over that stuff, and you got to just get to be about being amazing.
Yeah, I agree. And just to back that up too, it would be really nice if our communities could move past as soon as there is a Native person on screen, they become the representation of all Natives everywhere. Now represented by this person. And it's like, no, just how about he's a dude at the convenience store?
Okay.
Boom, exactly. Every time there's a guy from Pakistan or whatever behind the checkout stand, they don't make him have to stereotypically talk about his great grandfather who was the blah blah blah. It's just like it's just not good. And I think we need to start thinking about learning from the best and being more included in, knowing who you are. I always knew who I was playing guitar, but it was not the discussion that Rod Stewart had when he hired me. And I was in a band with a Puerto Rican and with two British guys. And those were the afterthoughts of what we would talk about. They were, what it was Tony Brock or Tony Thompson was the greatest drummer ever. And, he happens to be an African American. You know what I mean? Carmine Rojas wrote the bass line to Let's Dance, and he happens to be Puerto Rican. We got to hire a Puerto Rican guy to play this bass line. It wasn't that at all, ever.
That's what makes it beautiful.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh yeah, I was going to say, moving into things and achievements that are
talking about amazing.
Talking about amazing. Congratulations on your Lifetime Achievement Award at the 2024 San Diego Music Awards.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, congratulations. So,
this is your second honor for Lifetime Achievement.
Yeah,
you guys do your homework. It is my second one. The first one I got, just so you know, I told everybody that I'm way too young for this.
Well, yeah. So what does it mean to you to be recognized like that, especially at this point in your career, saying you're too young? Like, what does it mean?
Well, I don't think I'm too young now, but I got my Native American one in New York 12 years ago or 13 years ago or 14 years ago. And I go, guys, I'm too young. But they gave me that one for a reason then, because I was in Europe on tour with Dave Abergis from Pearl Jam and T.M. Stevens, the great T.M. Stevens bass player, passed away recently. He played with the Pretenders, and Miles Davis, and everybody. And they wanted to give me an award for one of my albums. My album, Be What It Is, I think it might have been, or one of my records, I forget which one. And I told them, don't give me an award for that. And I said, it's not fair. I play with the best musicians in the world. I have budgets, the best studio engineers and mixers at my fingertips. And I don't think it's fair that I take an award away from somebody who doesn't have those same things. And so they go, well, what about if we give you a Lifetime Achievement Award? I go, okay, because then you'll never have to give me another award again as an artist, because I don't want to take away those awards from people. And I'm glad I did it, because that night at the awards, there was a girl who was like 31 years old maybe, and she finally got her first album done. And she gave this little speech, and she was weeping, crying while she did it. She was like, I started this record when I was 17. It's my dream to be a singer and an artist. Next thing I know, I was pregnant at 18. I was having babies, and my career was, blah, blah, blah. And all of a sudden, she's like now in her 30s, and she finally finished that first album, and it won this award, and it meant the world to her. The world. It was, for her, that's all it took for her to look at herself in the mirror for the rest of her life and say, amazing, right? And I said, that's who those awards are for. Not for me, because I don't really care that much about awards. But the award I got recently in San Diego was important to me for a different reason, because I was born there, and I made most of my bones in the 90s doing things that were unheard of. David Bowie coming to my table and sitting down, and Mick Jagger calling me on the phone. And, it's crazy stuff that doesn't happen to people. But nobody knew, because there was no internet, right? So I'd be in France, and I'd be getting chased down the street by mobs, or playing concerts sold out all over the world. And in Japan and all these places. And no one knew it really, because there was no internet except for, people in the business. And so for me to go home to San Diego and my son to be there, who really, he was born long after, he was born when I was doing American Idol. I was a music director and consultant and everything. But he hangs out, he knows all the rock stars. He got free tickets to the Rolling Stones or whatever, but he didn't care. But for him to get to go and see his dad be honored like that. And I was on the full page of the Arts and Entertainment of the newspaper, and I was on television. And for once, it was like they really acknowledged that, kind of like, I have a weird resume. I don't know if you guys seem to know it, but I have a resume that almost sounds like a big lie. You know what I mean?
It really does.
Unrealistic, right? It's like, who has a resume like that? Not, let alone a native guy, but anybody. And so for them to finally acknowledge that I have this crazy resume. And it was cool, because in the video presentation, Billy Gibbons from ZZ Top, Rick Nielsen from Cheap Trick, Richie Kotzen, Sammy Hagar, they all made homemade videos and sent them in, and they all congratulated. And I'm sitting in San Diego, where I grew up surfing and skateboarding as just a regular kid, and they have these iconic rock stars Stevie, man, blah, blah, blah. And it was like, my friends were just like, I think they forgot, that this is what I do. And because when I'm home, I don't talk about it and I don't really do it. When I'm home, I hang out with my same friends that I went to grade school and played Pop Warner and Little League with, So the one in San Diego was really important to me because my son was there and I finally, I was home. But that one really was good. Not that the Native American one wasn't. That was really important to me as well. But I wanted that to be more as like a symbol of, hey, you guys, anything is possible.
I love the just the way you bow out of taking awards just to give it to people that don't have the same advantage. That is one of the most honorable things I've heard from an artist. It's just, that's very commendable, and I appreciate that.
I used to get really pissed off at Buffy because Buffy would put an album out and just go sweep all the awards away from all these kids. I'm like, Buffy, man, how many awards do you need? And then it turns out that, things went south with her really nuts.
Turns out all.
I mean, I don't know, it's like, the whole thing, it's like, I just couldn't understand it. Like, you got a kid and he's trying to make an album in a little cabin. But here's another thing that's not excusable. I talk to a lot of artists in Indian country and they get, in Canada especially, they get some money. And instead of going out and finding and asking someone like me or somebody really experienced to help them make their albums, they surround themselves with their friends and then they go in the room and they make an album. Then they make kind of a crappy album. It doesn't do well. And they blame it on racism or they blame it on because they're native and they don't have a chance. And a lot of times that's not good either because you need to ask everybody and get a no. Because if you don't ask, it's an automatic no. But if you ask, you got a 50-50 chance it might be a yes, And so I think that there's a lot of money out there. I just think a lot of people are afraid to ask or afraid to get themselves in over their head. So they get around people that make them feel more comfortable with themselves, which is, I understand that. But, you got to get into deep water, man. If you want to catch the big waves, you got to get out into deep water.
Yep. Dive head first.
Yeah.
So let's look into the future. Are there any specific projects like coming from Seeing Red Media or music projects you've got going on and like music or filmmaking that you think, everyone should know about or that you're really excited about?
Well, there's things I'm excited about. We have Seeing Red, Brian and I have some really amazing scripted stuff. We're working with this amazing showrunner, John Fusco. You Google him. He's made some of those iconic movies, shows you've ever seen, working with us. And my writing partner, Kevin Monroe, who wrote and directed TMNT, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles from Miramax. And, we work with really amazing people. We have some scripted stuff that we hope we can get out. It's hard with the scripted stuff because if it's Indigenous, the buyers all seem to want to put out victim stuff. You got to be a victim. You got your ass kicked and this is an injustice and we need to tell this story, which those stories need to be told. But not everything has to be us as victims. You know what I mean? We live in today's world. You know what I mean? So we're working on that at Seeing Red. And I did the new MC5 album with Bob Ezrin. And unfortunately, Wayne Kramer passed away, I think in February, which was a shocker, just out of nowhere. So we were really looking forward. I was looking forward to going with Wayne Kramer and doing a bunch of big festivals around the world and bringing back this MC5 sound that Wayne Kramer did. And so I don't know, I'm always looking around, maybe Jagger will call me again and I come back and play with him. I have these projects in Japan with a superstar singer named Koshi Inaba who sold 100 million records. And we go there and play these gigantic multiple nights and 20,000 seaters. So, I try to stay out there and doing stuff. And I'm also just trying to be a dad, trying to be home with my son as much as I can.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'll go. So on that, and you kind of said this earlier too, but this is a question we like to ask of everyone. And honestly, with your resume and your background, I think it's particularly important. But what advice would you give to Native youth who want a career in the arts or music?
Don't worry about being Native. Be Native. That's in your DNA. Do your thing. Surround yourself with the best possible people, not the people that tell you how great you are all the time. The people that might tell you you could be better, and surround yourself with, work harder. No matter how good you are, you can always be better. Get yourself out there, take some chances. put yourself on a limb. Don't play it safe. It's harder for people of color to break through. You have to take more chances. You have to push that envelope and not be afraid to fall on your face. And when you fall on your face, you got to know that, Michael Jordan missed a lot of baskets before he became the greatest basketball player that ever lived. So that's all my advice can be is get your ass kicked, but get back up and keep going, man. Just keep going. And because it isn't easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it. I know that it seems like I make it look really easy. But I think I just got a horseshoe at my. I think I'm super lucky, and it's not the norm.
So we may have to feel that.
But you know what it is too, though. Once I was accepted by George Clinton, then other people thought I must be serious, so they would hire me. So then I was, Thomas Dolby would call me, and because we have Bootsy Collins, and then Michael Hutchins from NXS wants to come and jam with me because he loves the fact that I worked with, blah, blah, blah. So if you surround yourself with these kind of people, these people are sort of doorways. If they're credible people, that's why Tanya Tagaq works so good for her. She surrounds herself with credible artists, and she works with the most credible people that are non-native. And then the doors are open for her because you go into another room of credibility. And credibility is really important. There's all these people that pretend to be great and they act like they're great and they're not great. And the marketplace will let you know that because if your records aren't selling or I made records that came out and I thought were great and it just didn't do well, and then I'll go make another record. And for some reason, Back from the Living was humongous. Why? I don't know. But, Alternative did huge. But, the Sometimes Almost Never was like, they didn't get it. But now they hear it 20 years later and they think it's amazing. So who knows what happens? It's just weird.
Well, that was awesome. I want to thank you so much for speaking with us. We truly, truly appreciate it. Yeah, and everyone that is listening, make sure you guys, if you haven't picked up one of Stevie Salas's albums, I don't know what's wrong with you. Make sure you guys go see Rumble, The Indians Who Rock the World, Boil Alert, and pay attention to everything else that's coming out from Seeing Red's Six Nations. We really appreciate you speaking with us so much, and we wish you.
I want to take a picture of this with you guys. Hold on.